Good evening. Thank you so much for being here. My name is Jen VanAntwerp. I am immensely grateful that BSidesCharm has given me the opportunity to speak on this subject. And I know it's a little bit different from most of the topics that we're used to seeing at security conferences, but it's a subject that I'm very passionate about. And first, I want to share a little bit about why. Look at this freckle-faced cutie patootie in her strawberry shortcake dress. This photo is from when I was in second or third grade. This cute kid is just full of hope and potential. This is also around the same age I was the first time I got drunk. I really didn't like myself. And as Caroline Wong mentioned in her brilliant keynote, alcohol helped me to forget, at least for a little while. Then heavier drug use started in high school and massively worsened in college. I put myself and my family through the ringer. But then miraculously, in October 2000, I got sober. Thank you. I am now unapologetically noisy when it comes to breaking the stigma around addiction recovery. So that is my why. Today we stand at the precipice of a significant cultural shift within our industry. Traditionally, alcohol has played a starring role in our social networking events, often being seen as indispensable to fostering a relaxed and social environment. But as we evolve towards more inclusive and health-conscious work events, it's critical that we reassess our often toxic relationship with alcohol in the workplace. But don't be scared. I am not going to cast alcohol as the evil villain in my talk today. Heck, right after I'm done, I'm going to be joining all of you at the happy hour and having a great time, mocktail style. Woo, woo. The goal of this dialogue is to explore how we can foster a networking environment that is welcoming, inclusive, and supportive. This conversation is about expanding our options, not limiting them, to create a security culture that prioritizes well-being and genuine connections. But first, we need to talk about the problem. For decades, heck, probably centuries, alcohol has been the central part of professional gatherings and celebrations. I personally have worked in 3 different industries: automotive, healthcare, and now cybersecurity. And while those industries are very different, the networking events are almost exactly the same. A quick Google image search confirms unequivocally that networking event means sharply dressed individuals with wine glasses in their hands. Instant rapport, just add champagne. And I'm sure that this will be no surprise to anyone in this room. Working in security can be quite challenging. In a 2022 survey conducted by Tynes, 66% of security professionals indicated that they experienced significant levels of stress at their work. And when it comes to in-person conferences or even virtual events, anxiety levels for many of us are increased, which often leads to increased alcohol consumption. And when that alcohol consumption is employer-sponsored, it becomes even tougher for people to resist. There's a saying that alcohol is the only drug you have to justify not using. That saying comes into play pretty often when I'm at work events. Often the first thing that people say when they hear that I don't drink is, "Oh, I'm so sorry," or, "Oh, did you have a problem?" Well, yeah, I had a problem, not that it's any of your damn business. I'm just kidding. I don't mind talking about my struggles, but not everyone does, or should they have to. Why someone would choose not to drink really isn't anyone's business at that particular moment. There is a whole slew of potential negative consequences that can come about as a result of alcohol in the workplace. Impaired judgment, embarrassing behavior, health issues. I chose these images because, quite frankly, they've cracked me up, and they tied in nicely with that very last bullet point on the screen. But this is a serious issue and can lead to big complications. In a professional setting, it can have serious repercussions on someone's career and reputation. There's also an element of potential liability involved when the alcohol is being supplied by an employer. So what does it mean to go beyond booze at our networking events? I'm going to share some tips and ideas for alternative networking events and some real-world examples of things that you can implement, whether you're an event organizer, a field marketer, or a team leader who's looking to make their work outings more inclusive. And if we have enough time at the end, I know we're going to have enough time at the end because I've practiced this a few times. I'll talk a little bit about what it means to go beyond booze in our personal lives for anyone who's interested in making some incremental changes to move towards a lifestyle that's less dependent upon alcohol. We'll start with the tips for going beyond booze at our networking events. Tip number 1, it's considerate to consider it. The first thing to think about is just to think about it. Don't make it an afterthought. Try to consider what the event or the experience will be like for those of us who don't drink and who are choosing not to drink for whatever reason: sobriety, health-related issues, medication conflicts, training for a marathon, whatever the case might be. Just considering it is already so considerate. And then work that consideration into your regular planning for an event so that way it just becomes part of the standard process. If you're not sure what to do or how to make the event more welcoming for people who don't drink, phone a sober friend. That's exactly what the organizers here at BSidesCharm did. They started thinking about this issue months ago to try to find ways that the happy hour event could be more inclusive and welcoming for everyone. DEF CON does a fabulous job of this too. And I also want to give a shout out to Blue Team Con for their Sober Games room. ShmooCon is going to be sponsoring that space this year, and my nonprofit is also going to assist, so it's going to be a blast. My next tip is to think outside the box. Our industry has plenty of happy hours, whiskey tastings, wine pairings, and bar crawls. Use those big, brilliant brains and get creative. There are tons of fun activities that we can do and that you can host that don't involve alcohol. I'm going to share some of the things that our nonprofit has been involved in, along with some other cool ideas that I've come across. First, the Sober Speakeasy. This was our launch event that took place last year right before DEF CON. It took place in the underground distillery at the Mob Museum in Las Vegas. A sober event at a bar, you might ask? We are all about breaking stigma and reclaiming spaces. The Mob Museum bartenders whipped up some mocktails that were absolutely amazing. We sent a speakeasy password to attendees before the event so that way they could come in through the back door just like at an old-timey speakeasy. It was awesome. And here's a hot tip. If you're planning an event without alcohol, but you still have food and beverage minimums, you can pick some really amazing food because you're not going to blow your budget on alcohol. Anyone who was present at that event can attest to the fact that the food was scrumptious. In a few weeks, we'll be hosting a Rockin' Mocktails event at the RSA conference. This one will feature rock and roll themed mocktails and arts and crafts activities with a punk rock slant. Yes, there will be safety pins involved. We're also really proud to be sponsoring the Mind Over Cyber Mindfulness and Networking Breakfast. That event is going to feature a meditation workshop, and they'll have a journaling or intention notebook as a swag item. I'm a big fan of journaling. More on that later. Code and Coffee is an awesome community for developers of any level, and you can check out a list of their events at codeandcoffee.org. They talk about coding over, you guessed it, coffee. So these are just a few examples of networking events that don't involve alcohol, and I know that we can all dream up even more. Tip number 3, it doesn't have to be fancy. If you don't have the budget to throw a big alcohol-free party, you can still find ways to make your networking event more inclusive for those who don't want to drink. Get crafty. Like literally, try offering some crafts. The photo on the left with my friend, who I don't want to accidentally dox, is of my nonprofit's first booth at Wild West Hackenfest last year. Unfortunately, the box with my table cover, swag item, stickers was lost at a USPS facility. So when I say it doesn't have to be fancy, you know I mean it. Thankfully, our pop-up banner and all of our crafting supplies were in my checked bag, thank goodness. We had a DIY inspiration station where attendees were able to make their own keychains, bracelets, or little charms. It was a really big hit. It was fun, interactive, and engaging. And then the photos on the right were from another conference where we sponsored a crafting activity that involved blanket tying. This was at the Cybersecurity Marketing Society's annual conference in Austin, Texas. The blankets were set up in a room, and attendees tied knots around the edges and then wrote an inspirational message on the label. And then the blankets were donated to foster children in the local Austin area. That just adds a whole nother layer to warm fuzzies. Being inclusive can even be as simple as offering a single mocktail or a fun alcohol-free beverage during your happy hour event. This Chief Mocktail Officer, or CMO, was offered during the marketing conference's social event. They also served alcohol at their event, but they had this refreshing and clever themed beverage available for anyone like me who didn't want to drink. And then you have the knitting and networking event. Okay, this one is not an actual event yet, but I thought about it when I was creating these slides, and I thought, how cool would that be? Like, who here would want to go to a knitting and networking event? I definitely would. I have no idea how to knit, but I'm sure maybe someone in this room, or at least at this conference, has the knowledge and would be able to help us put something like that together. The key is just to challenge ourselves and to think creatively to find some alternative options. And then when you've found those alternative options, tip number 4 comes into play, and it's all about promos, comms, and signage. If you've decided to offer an alternative option at your networking event, whether it's an entirely alcohol-free soiree or it's a single mocktail or two at an open bar, don't forget to share those options will be. Communicate early and often. This will help to set expectations, and it'll let the folks who are seeking those alternative options like me know that they are welcome at your event. I cannot express in words the joy and gratitude I feel when I see that an event organizer is offering mocktail or other beverage options at their event. It might not seem like a big deal to most people reading that non-alcoholic in the Martini Mingle social post or the RSA email, but to me and others like me, it means the world. So mentioning that you'll have those options in your emails and your social posts will help to spread the word and set expectations. And then at the event itself, make sure that your signage and your menu options are clear. I think S4, the annual OT Security Conference, has done a fantastic job of this the past few years. In their website, email, and event app, they mention that at their welcome party, they're going to have non-alcoholic options. And for the last 2 years, they've had an entirely separate bar for those non-alcoholic drinks. This year, they had a lot of different delicious citrus beverages and some non-alcoholic beers and IPAs. And the fact that the NA bar was completely separate from the other area meant that people who didn't want to drink did not have to wait in a gigantic line just for a sparkling water. Nobody loves that. The NA bar at S4 was hoppin'. It probably didn't hurt that it was right next to the Death Star fire pit where we were roasting marshmallows. Yes, they have a Death Star fire pit, and they have karaoke. And yes, I did karaoke outdoors there in 2023 to earn the coveted limited edition karaoke t-shirt. Sober daytime karaoke is weird, very weird, but I did the damn thing, and I actually had fun. And that brings me to tip number 5, which is just to have fun. Sober does not have to mean somber. We recently co-hosted an event with CactusCon in Arizona that took place at an arcade bar. We bought out the second level of the arcade, and we had food, unlimited tokens and gameplay, and fun mocktails like the Malware Mocktini, the Control-Alt Delight, and my personal favorite, the Liquid Deep Fake. And if attendees wanted an alcoholic beverage, they just had to go downstairs to the downstairs bar for a cash pay option. Everyone had a blast. So as you can see, offering alternative options gives people the chance to choose their own adventure and decide how they want to celebrate. So those are the tips for going beyond booze at your work events. And now I have just enough time to do a quick lightning round and share some of my favorite sobriety hacks if you want to go beyond booze in your personal life. These may be familiar to anyone who attended my talk at ShmooCon this year, which was my very first talk ever, and this is my second one, so thank you so much for being here. But these are thank you. So sorry if these are repeats for anyone, but they're very good nuggets. The first sobriety hack is to believe in the power of mantras. A mantra can be a saying, a song lyric, any kind of reminder that brings you back to your why. My sobriety mantra and my battle cry is, what does it add to your life? That's something that one of my uncles asked me about a year before I got sober, and it planted the seed for my future sobriety, and I've never forgiven him. Just kidding. I'm so grateful for that moment, eternally, eternally grateful. That mantra, find the mantra and the why that works for you. The second hack is to know your triggers. Triggers can be people, places, things, situations, even certain smells. You can avoid them if needed or work through them with a professional, but just knowing them is very important. Hack number 3 is to focus on gratitude. The way I try to practice this is by keeping a gratitude journal. And when I say practice, I mean practice, because I am not very good at it. I'm not good at remembering to write things down every single day, but I try to write down either things I'm grateful for or funny moments, things that have happened throughout the day. It's really morphed as I've done the practice throughout the years to things that either my parents have said that are funny or cute little things that nieces and nephews have done. Just random happy thoughts. And I'm not a neuroscientist, but I swear that it has reprogrammed my brain to focus more on those moments. If something cool happens to me throughout the day, I try to focus extra hard on remembering that so that I can write it down in my damn gratitude journal later that night. I also give myself a bunch of grace when I forget to write in the book for days or weeks or even months. I'll just write a little note that says, oops, I got busy. Be kind to yourselves, especially when you're trying to learn a new habit or unlearn an old one that no longer serves you. Sobriety hack number 4 is to find your support squad. These are the people that will have your back no matter what, but they will also hold you accountable for the changes that you want to make in your life. My 5th sobriety hack is tried and true tip that many people who don't want to drink at social events have sneakily been doing for ages, and it's to always have a beverage in your hand. Often when people try to offer you drinks at social events, they're just trying to be polite. If you always have a sparkling water or something similar in your hand, then you won't get the barrage of, hey, what are you drinking? Hey, what's your poison? You'll see me practice this hack at the happy hour event in just a little while. I have some very ironic coasters with reminders of those sobriety hacks, so come and find me during the conference if you'd like one of those. And as my time with you wraps up, I want to circle back to the previous tips that show the ways that we can go beyond booze in our networking events. Try to consider those alternative options from the very beginning of your planning, and don't make them an afterthought. Use those big, brilliant cybersecurity brains to think outside the box and find some creative options for your networking events. And those options do not have to be fancy. They can be as simple as a single mocktail option at your open bar. Communicate about those options early and often to help set expectations and spread the word. And finally, for crying out loud, just have fun. Out of all